so let's get into your career and your life. The book is called Damnations, Greed, Guns, Armies, and Aid. And I want to talk a little bit about how you got where you are. You get out of medical, or you're in medical school. Maybe you're fresh out of medical school. Where'd you tell your parents you were headed to?
I told them I was going on safari in Kenya. I know it was a shameful, awful lie. And as a parent myself now, I can just, I think I would chain my son to the bed and tell him he wasn't going anywhere.
Well, I mean, the truth is, it's not like you said I was going on safari and then you went for a debaucherous weekend in Vegas. I mean, you were off to actually do good stuff.
I was, but I was worried about that. I was worried that they would be worried.
And I'm sure they should have been worried, right?
They should have been. I was going into Somalia. I was working as a volunteer with UNICEF. It was a contract that I accepted for exactly $1, so I would be covered by their evacuation order if one would be required. And it was a decision that ended up changing my life and changing the course of my professional career.
What year was this in
This
Somalia?
was 1995, and I was 25 years old.
And so you're fresh and green, and you're thinking, I'm going to go change the world. I'm excited about this. I'm going to lie to mom and dad and run off and do good. And that first experience didn't deter you because you've gone back again and again. What happened in Somalia?
Well, I was in Somalia during the second wave of the famine, and it was right after the troops were withdrawn that were deployed during Operation Restore Hope. Anyone who's ever seen Black Hawk Down knows a little bit about what that was about. And so the troops went home, and as a result, many of the international organizations also left Somalia. There was a genocide that was had happened in Rwanda. And so as a result, all of the health services had literally just driven to a halt. And so my job was to work as part of an assessment team to go around the country to figure out what UNICEF should be doing and how they could respond to this particular famine, because they were seeing, literally thousands of women and children who were suffering from malnutrition and other diseases.
So while you're a medical doctor on this assignment, you weren't really there to just go treat everybody you can. You were there to assess and help, them decide, all right, here's how we need to deploy things. Here's who needs the most help.
Yeah, I'm a public health doctor, so that's what we do. We look at what the overall picture is and what the needs are, and then we try to come up with strategies to meet those needs.
And this first taste of this, I mean, what were your first reactions?
It's almost impossible to describe. And 20 years later, Somalia is no better off. I mean, anybody who's following the headlines these days knows that there's another famine that's again happening in that part of the world with tens of thousands of people who are dying. And, it was awful, frankly. There were bodies in the streets. There were, the moment for me, I guess, the real moment of reckoning was going to a feeding clinic that UNICEF was funding. And I write about this in Damnations. And I was interviewing women who were standing in line and talking to them about their needs. And I leaned over at one point and I put my finger in the palm of a baby that this mother was holding, only to realize that the baby was already dead. And still the woman was waiting to see if something could be done for her child. And I was just shocked and appalled. And on top of that, I was also really deeply disturbed by the number of young men that I saw who were running around with automatic rifles. I mean, in Somalia at that time, and still, it was easier to get access to an automatic rifle like a Kalashnikov than it was to get access to clean drinking water. And this was one of the reasons why thousands of people were dying and why they couldn't get access to healthcare when they needed it. And 20 years later, we're seeing exactly the same thing. So it definitely changed my perspective.
I literally can't remember all the different instances I read about in the book where you were at each time, because you traveled quite a bit. But what resounds throughout is women with dying children who can't get services, and young boys high on something, carrying AK-47s or something around as these kind of ruthless young child warlords who don't know any better, and maybe are because of their suffering and the way they're taught, they're just ruling things and doing whatever they want. I remember the story in the book about this woman with a dead baby, and I remember you went up and said something to somebody there, like, I think in stun, like, what are we doing here? And he said, there's a long line there. You'll find many more women with dead babies.
Well, that's exactly. I went to the attendant at the clinic and I said, the woman who's standing there, her baby is dead, and I was hoping that they would kind of usher her aside and help her. And the response was exactly as you describe. I mean, it really was, yes, thank you, young doctor, for pointing that out. But if you go up to most women in line, their babies are either dead or close to being dead. And this is what it means to live in Somalia right now.
It's interesting because as great as having people like you keep arriving to help to do things, it's very exasperating throughout the book. Many times where you're like, wait a minute, let's do something here. And they're like, here we go again, white girl. This is not how it works. There's 100,000 people like this. We can't stop these two boys with guns because not only are they going to kill you, they're going to kill me. And I remember that at one point in the book, you're driving in a Humvee somewhere and you've got a local driver and you see two young boys on the side of the road with a father and a son, or possibly blindfolded and walking together, and they're ready to kill them, and you're screaming, "Stop, stop." And he basically said, "Listen, young lady, you can die when you want, but you're not killing me today."
Well, that's exactly what happened. He wouldn't let me out of the car. He was a UN driver, and I thought, to be honest, I don't even know what I was thinking I was going to do. You know, you see something as horrific as that. You see, especially a young boy, he was about 6, that it looks like they're about to execute him, and you immediately want to do something. And he refused to stop the car, and his reasoning in that situation was that if he stopped the car and one of us got out, or that we would both be killed. And to be honest, he was probably right. And I make the point with that story that it really is, only fools rush in believing they have all the answers while not realizing how quickly we can become part of the problem.
That's Dr. Samantha Nutt. The book is called Damned Nations, warchild.us, to find out more about an organization she helped found and is closely aligned with and is doing good work all the time. SamanthaNutt.com is the website for more information on the book, but it's available everywhere. Please pick it up. It's filled with stories of hope and stories of terror that will make you want to stand up and do something. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.